by the changing mood of the crowd, by my own stubborn refusal to give Blackwood the satisfaction of breaking me. The snow had buried the projectiles people had thrown earlier. I was covered in a white shroud, looking more like a winter spirit than a human woman. My lips had turned blue. My skin was gray, and I was barely breathing, but I was still there, still present, still unbroken in the one way that mattered. Blackwood was getting nervous now. I could see it in the way he kept checking the church tower for the time, in the way he avoided looking directly at me. If I died, he would have killed someone over wounded pride. Even in medieval England, that had consequences. The question was, would I survive long enough for those consequences to matter? The answer came in the 5th hour, and it changed everything. Hour 5. My body was shutting down systematically. I could no longer feel anything below my waist. My breathing was so shallow it was barely perceptible. Ice crystals had formed inside my nose and throat. By all medical logic available in 1645, I should have been dead, but I wasn't. That small ember I'd found in the 2nd hour had somehow kept the very core of me warm enough to survive. The physician approached Blackwood again, more insistent this time. "She needs to come down now, or she'll die. And when she dies, you'll be before the magistrate, explaining why enforcing a 6-hour sentence was more important than a human life." Other men joined him, town elders, people whose opinions Blackwood couldn't simply dismiss. But Blackwood's pride wouldn't let him yield. Not with 1 hour remaining. "The law says 6 hours, he insisted. "We cannot show weakness by 'he never finished that sentence,' because something remarkable happened." The women started moving forward, not aggressively, but deliberately. They formed a circle around the cucking stool, turning their backs to Blackwood, facing outward toward the men. They didn't say anything. They didn't need to. Their message was clear. Enough. In that moment, I understood something profound. I hadn't survived this ordeal alone. Every woman in that circle was lending me her strength, just as I had unknowingly lent them mine by refusing to break. We were connected by something deeper than words, a shared understanding of what it meant to survive in a world designed to keep us silent. But would Blackwood back down, or would this standoff end in something even worse? The church bells rang for evening prayers. 6 hours had passed. Technically, legally, my punishment was complete. Blackwood had no choice but to release me, not out of mercy, but because the law he'd hidden behind so smugly now demanded it. He approached with the keys to the restraints, his face a mask of barely controlled rage. The iron bands released with a clank that echoed across the silent square. I tried to stand and immediately collapsed. My legs wouldn't support me. My muscles had been locked in one position for 6 hours in freezing temperatures. But here's what happened. Before Blackwood's men could grab me, the women caught me. They wrapped me in blankets, lifted me gently, and began carrying me away. I looked back at Blackwood one last time. Our eyes met. In his face, I saw fury, yes, but underneath it, fear. Because he understood what had just happened. He had used his most powerful weapon against me, public humiliation, physical suffering, the weight of community condemnation. And I had survived. Not just survived, I had transformed his weapon into a demonstration of strength. The cucking stool would never be used again in Oakhaven. Not because of any law or decree, but because its power had been broken. It stood in that square for another decade, gradually rotting away, a monument to the failure of intimidation. They eventually tore it down and burned it, but by then, it didn't matter. Everyone remembered what had happened there. The recovery took weeks. I lost 3 toes to frostbite. The bruises from the projectiles took months to fade. The psychological impact lasted longer, but something else happened during that recovery. I became something I never intended to be. A symbol. Women started coming to my cottage, at first just to check on me, but then to talk. To share their own stories of silencing and intimidation, to ask how I'd survived. I told them the truth. I survived because I had to, because the alternative was letting them win. Because somewhere in that 4th hour, when my body was failing and death seemed certain, I found a core of myself that couldn't be frozen, couldn't be humiliated, couldn't be broken. And once you find that core, once you know it's there, everything changes. The town changed too. Blackwood's authority never fully recovered. He had overplayed his hand, had shown the naked brutality beneath his pretense of justice. Women started speaking up more in town meetings. Not many, not often. This was still medieval England, but enough to matter. Enough to show that something had shifted. Did I become some kind of revolutionary leader? No. I continued my quiet life, tending my herbs, reading my books, offering counsel to those who sought it. But I was different now, tempered. Like metal plunged into ice water, I had emerged harder, stronger, more resilient. The woman who sat in that chair was not the same woman who walked away from it. And here's the most important part, the reason I'm telling you this story. The world still has its cucking stools. They look different now. Social media pylons, professional blacklisting, public shaming campaigns, but the goal is the same. To break your spirit through humiliation. To make you so uncomfortable, so exposed, so vulnerable that you'll do anything to make it stop. To silence you not through violence, but through the sustained application of social and psychological pressure. And just like in medieval Oakhaven, these modern cucking stools work because we let them. Because we'd rather look away than stand in that circle of women who faced outward. Because we've convinced ourselves that if we just keep our heads down, stay quiet, don't make waves, we'll be safe. But here's the truth. Silence doesn't protect you. It just makes you easier to target. When you find yourself in that chair, and you will, in one form or another, here's what you need to remember. They're counting on you to break. They're expecting your spirit to freeze before your body does. They want you to internalize the shame, to believe you deserve this, to come away from the experience diminished and silent. Don't give them that satisfaction. Find that ember deep inside yourself, that core of who you are that cannot be touched by cold, by cruelty, by the jeering crowd. Feed it with every memory of your strength, every moment of your courage, every instance of your truth. Let it grow until it's a fire that burns away the shame they're trying to pile onto you. You will survive this, and when you do, you won't be the same person who sat down in that chair. You'll be stronger, you'll be tempered, you'll be unbreakable. That's my story. That's the truth I learned in the frozen winter of 1645, strapped to a medieval torture device designed to humiliate women into submission. I learned that the human spirit is stronger than any instrument of oppression. That solidarity can form in the most unexpected moments. That sometimes survival itself is the most radical act of resistance. I learned that you can't drown fire with ice. You can't freeze determination. You can't humiliate strength into submission. All you can do is reveal it, temper it, make it harder and more resilient than it was before. So if my story has reached something in you, if you've recognized your own cucking stool, your own Blackwood, your own moment of frozen despair, then I want you to do something for me. I want you to subscribe to Flow of History. Because history isn't just dates and kings and battles. History is stories like mine. Stories of ordinary people who faced extraordinary cruelty and found extraordinary strength. Stories that remind us we're not alone in our struggles, that others have survived worse, that the human spirit is more resilient than any system designed to break it. We tell these stories not to glorify suffering, but to arm you with hope, to show you that whatever you're facing, others have faced worse and emerged stronger. To remind you that you have a core of strength inside you that cannot be frozen, cannot be broken, cannot be extinguished, no matter how cold the winter, how cruel the crowd, how heavy the iron restraints. Stay strong, stay warm, and never let them convince you that shame is something you deserve rather than something they're trying to impose on you. Your voice matters, your truth matters, you matter. And remember, it is in the deepest cold that we discover the fire we are made of.